Imagine this, you're on a dig, shovel scraping against dirt, heart pounding with anticipation. Every crackle of a walkie-talkie, every glint of metal, could unveil a secret buried for centuries. From the mesmerizing depths of a 3,000-year-old pharaoh's coffin to the astonishing Paleolithic statue transported over 450 miles across the Alps, and not forgetting the breathtaking tale of the ship at the bottom of the world, each find on our list promises to leave you awe-inspired. So buckle up and get ready to witness the wonders of our ancient past, because the number one spot on our countdown promises to blow your mind like never before. Number 12. The inside of a 3,000-year-old beheaded pharaoh's coffin. Scientists rarely get the chance to look inside the tomb of an ancient Egyptian king or queen, and it might seem impossible to do so without opening the tomb. But the tomb that held the mummy of Egypt's king Amenhotep I has been almost completely opened, showing a lot of new details about this important leader. This is one of the few known royal bodies that has not been opened since it was found in 1881. It belongs to Amenhotep I. Rich people held a lot of private mummy opening parties during the Victorian era. Radiologist Tahar Salim of Cairo University led the project. The mummy was never unwrapped because scholars at the time thought it was too beautiful to destroy, she says. With the help of painless CT scans, Salim made 3D models of the pharaoh's mask, bandages, body, and face. It was very moving to see how much the pharaoh looked like his father, Ahmose, after 3,000 years, she says. The body of Amenhotep I was not found where it was buried, but in the old town of Deir el-Bahari, along with other mummies of royalty. Priests exhumed these mummies during the 21st dynasty and put them in new tombs after rewrapping them. Prior to their discovery, many of the mummies in the cache had suffered significant damage from tomb thieves. The priests carefully reattached Amenhotep's head to his body with a resin-treated linen band, as shown by Salim's scans. Perhaps thieves tore off a necklace and broke his neck. They also moved his broken left arm around, filled in a hole in his gut with gold amulets, and covered it up. Salim says, the study shows that the priests of the 21st dynasty were very careful when they reburied Amenhotep's body, keeping the golden decorations and putting many amulets inside. This leads us to believe that these priests were committed to protecting these ancient mummies, despite modern claims that their real goal was to steal the jewelry. She could also see that the pharaoh's right arm was folded over his chest, which is how it was when he was mummified. Salim says that royal mummies were often made to look like Osiris, the god of the afterlife, by folding their arms across their chests. The mummy of Amenhotep I was the first to be mummified in this way, which was later used for all ancient Egyptian mummies. Number 11. Religious Aztec offerings to the gods restored in sugar. At the base of the Templo Mayor in Tenochtitlan, the Aztecs or Mexica capital city, a team of archaeologists under the direction of Leonardo Lopez Lujan discovered a collection of 2,550 exquisitely preserved wooden artifacts. New techniques for preserving the artifacts in advanced microscopy are shedding new light on how they were made and what they meant. As part of rituals, the intricately made items, such as scepters, ear flares, nose and finger rings, and small masks and weapons, were buried between 1486 and 1502. The Mexicans worshipped Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, and Tlaloc, the god of rain. All of these things are connected to these gods. Priests put the wooden things in stone boxes that also had plants, animal and human bones, and seashells. Adriana Sanroman, a restorer for the Templo Mayor project, says that most of the gifts were wet or had a very high humidity level. This kept the wooden things safe, but it also made them break down. The wet conditions helped protect the wood and painted designs on many of the things. However, over the hundreds of years that the gifts have been buried, chemical processes have broken down the wood, causing cracks and other changes. As part of their ongoing work to settle the objects and stop any more damage, Sanroman and her co-worker Maria Barajas immerse them in a mixture of growing amounts of synthetic sugars. This moves the water out of the wood's cell structure. After that, they dry the items and take off any extra sugar. It can take up to a year to finish this long and complicated process of preservation. Researchers have discovered the different types of wood that Mexican artists used to make the gifts by looking at very small pieces of wood under a scanning electron microscope. Most of the things that were looked at were carved from pine that was cut down in the woods of central Mexico. Other things were made from mesquite, fir, cypress, alder, or butterfly bush. Barada says all of these are softwoods that made it easy to carve these very detailed little things. Sculptors may have chosen certain types of wood based on what was available, but it also seems that the wood they chose had religious meanings. We believe that certain types of wood were picked out because of their beauty and deeper meanings, says Victor Cortés, an archaeologist working on the Templo Mayor project. For instance, Huitzilopochtli was linked to mesquite and Tlaloc to pine. Number 10. The Paleolithic statue carried 450 miles over the Alps. The 30,000-year-old stone carving called the Venus of Willendorf was found on the banks of the Danube River in the town that bears its name. Since then, many things about the 4.3-inch tall figure have remained unknown, but the long-standing question of where the sculpture's materials came from has now been answered. This opens up new ways to study how far people from the Gravetian period went. A group led by Gerhard Weber from the University of Vienna used a method called high-resolution microcomputed tomography to scan the figure. Venus was made from oolitic limestone, a type of volcanic rock whose makeup changes a lot from place to place. It was found with other models that were made of ivory. Weber says that oolite is like a digital mark of the Earth. The team thought that the stone would have come from somewhere within 100 miles of Willendorf. They were shocked to find out that it had come from about 450 miles away in the Italian Alps near Segudaiala. The experts think it's likely that the figurine was made there before it was brought across the mountains. Weber says this trip could have taken years, decades, or even centuries. But in the Ice Age, the Alps might not have been such a big problem as we usually think. The high-resolution scans also let researchers see features of parts of the sculpture's structure that had been stumped for a long time. It is now known that limonites, which are iron oxide concretions, filled the half-sphere-shaped holes in the limestone's surface. These limonites probably fell out during the cutting process because they are stronger than the limestone. This doll's stomach has one of these holes where the navel should be, in the middle. There are some signs, like furrows from a tool, that this limonite may have been taken off on purpose, says Weber. That would mean the artist already had a very good idea of how the figurine would look in the end. That would show us a lot about how these Paleolithic people thought. Number 9. The world's oldest and most valuable cocktail drinkware. It's possible that the 8 gold and silver tubes found in southern Russia, and dating back to around 3500 BC, are the world's oldest drinking straws, according to a new theory. The tubes were found next to one of 3 bodies in the Moykok Kurgan, which was a grave mound that was dug up in 1897. The well-furnished mound also had hundreds of other items, such as metal cups, weapons, clay vessels, and beads made of gold and semi-precious stones. At first, people thought the empty tubes, which are about 3.7 feet long and just under a half-inch wide, were scepters or poles used to hold up a canopy. Viktor Trifonov, a historian at the Institute for the History of Material Culture of the Russian Academy of Sciences, thought the tubes might have been used for something very different. He thought they might have been used as straws in a group drinking activity like the ones shown in art from Mesopotamia that was found in Iraq in the 4th millennium BC. To test his theory, he looked into the metal tips of the tubes, which are pierced in a way that might help filter out impurities in a drink. Trifonov looked at the leftovers from one of these tips and found barley starch crystals, preserved plant tissue particles, and a lime tree pollen grain. These could be signs that the tubes were used to drink barley beer. This way of drinking with friends and family probably started in Mesopotamia and then spread to the area around Maykop, according to him. Number 8. The Neolithic 9,000-year-old sacrificial stone shrine. Around 9,000 years ago, hunters built a stone shrine in the mountains of southeastern Jordan. It is one of the oldest religious buildings ever found. They found the shrine in a Neolithic campsite near a network of desert kites. The researchers who found it were Mohamed Tirana from Al Hussein bin Talal University and Wael Abu Aziz from the French Institute of the Near East. Desert kites are different from the kind of toy kites that children play with today. They are made up of sets of rock walls that go across the land, sometimes for miles, and meet in a small area where game, like gazelles, can be gathered and then easily killed. The team already knew that the kites near the shrine were from the Neolithic period, which was 12,000 to 7,000 years ago in Jordan. Now they have found clear proof that the shrine is linked to these huge hunting grounds. The shrine was made to look like a scale model of a kite, and one of the 2 standing stelas inside the building shows a stylized picture of a desert kite. The team also found a big stone altar with many cuts in it near a fire. According to Abu Aziz, one theory is that the stone table was used for religious activities inside the church, such as killing deer bodies. The ritual performance probably called on supernatural forces to help the hunters succeed. A surprise stash of about 150 marine fossils was also found in the shrine, but no one knows what they were used for. Number 7. Proof of the earliest date in the Mayan calendar in recorded history. The oldest known writing from the 260-day Mayan religious calendar is an inch-wide picture of a deer's head found at the base of a mound in the ancient city of San Bartolo. This calendar is still used today. The symbol, which was translated by researchers David Stewart of the University of Texas at Austin and Heather Hurst of Skidmore College as 7 deer, is a date and was drawn on one of the pyramid's inner walls around 250 BC as part of a painting. 11 pieces of the painting with early Maya writing on them have been found, but the only hieroglyphic writing that has been figured out so far is the 7 deer date. The group believes that a writer who created the symbol did so in accordance with a well-known artistic and literary movement of the 3rd century BC. The 7 deer date looks like beautiful calligraphy, says Hurst. The brushwork that was used to paint it can be seen in its fine flicks. Hurst says that the day sign was like a caption and may have marked an important date because the pyramid was part of a bigger telescope for the stars. Stewart says that the Maya still use the date 7 deer to mark the start of the solar year. He says, "It's a New Year's date." This had to do with the pyramid's role as a sort of tropical observatory for the sun. Number 6. The mystery of the elite Peruvian mummy and tomb solved. At El Castillo de Hormi on Peru's northern coast, a team of researchers under the direction of Miłosz Giersz from the University of Warsaw discovered the tomb of a man who held a high rank in the Wari Empire. The Wari ruled most of what is now Peru. They got people to support them through armed action and irrigation projects. The man in the tomb was found dressed in a mummy's bundle. The bodies of 6 other people, likely another man, 2 women, and 3 teens whose gender has not yet been confirmed, were found in nearby rooms. They were clearly part of the elite because they were buried with important items like gold and silver ear spools, which were the regalia of the elite, says Giersz. But what's really interesting is that the men don't look like they were warriors. As a general rule, Wari art shows powerful men with weapons. However, both the men and women in this tomb look like they were very good at making things. The man in the bundle was buried with textiles, painted leather, and baskets that were all at different stages of production. For making baskets, archaeologists also found reeds, bright cotton and wool thread, cords of different sizes and colors, and balls of resin that were used as glue. Giersz says that the bones of both the men and women in the tomb have marks from the kind of repeated use of the hands that happens when making things. There are no signs of damage from fighting though. There are also signs on their bodies that they had major physical problems, like osteoporosis-related bone loss, trouble moving around, and bad tooth damage. These conditions may explain why the men in the tomb were not fit to be warriors, says Giersz. The tomb is close to a huge cemetery that Giersz found in 2012, and that holds the bodies of 58 important Wari women. The new tomb is the first to contain high-status Wari men who worked as craftsmen. Number 5. Unveiling the lost Viking hall in Denmark. In Denmark, archaeologists have uncovered a vast building that dates to the late Viking period, around 950 to 1050 AD. The structure, which measures 130 by 32 feet, is substantially bigger than typical dwellings of the era, leading experts to speculate that it formerly held political or social meetings. Supported by many oak pillars, the building functioned as a crucial hub for social gatherings during that period. In December 2022, archaeologists made this surprising discovery, even though the excavation was expected to take a year to complete. This find, one of the most intriguing in recent history, quickly captured the world's attention and dominated headlines. The hall's design resembles King Harald Blatten's ring castles, leading archaeologists to tentatively date it to the late 9th century. However, while the presence of a nearby rune stone suggests the hall might have belonged to Viking Runald den Radsnold's family, this is currently just a theory. Archaeologists have only excavated half of the Viking hall so far, but they aim to continue their efforts this year, weather permitting. They also plan to conduct radiocarbon dating to more accurately estimate the hall's age. Number 4. The 2,000-year-old temple proving Buddhists lived in Pakistan. Between about the 6th century BC and the 6th century AD, people from the Middle East, Central Asia, and India traded things and ideas with each other in the area of northwest Pakistan called the Greater Gandhara. Buddhism, which began in northern India between the late 6th and early 4th centuries BC and spread all over the area, was one of the most important religions there. Archaeologist Luca Maria Olivieri of Ca' Foscari University and his ISMEO team have found a Buddhist temple in the Gandharan city of Barikat. The temple was built at least 2,000 years ago, and it may have been built earlier. The building of this temple takes place during a time when Barikat was a center for Buddhist teaching and a holy travel spot. It is the oldest known Buddhist temple in the area. We did not think there would be Buddhist sites in the city at this point, Olivieri says. Up to this point, we hadn't found any proof that Buddhists lived in Barikat before the end of the 1st century AD so far. The pieces that have been dug up include a 10-foot-high apsidal building that was later used to build a circle shrine. A famous Buddhist stupa in the shape of a cone is inside the building. The discovery of a great religious monument created at the time of the Indo-Greek kingdom testifies that this was an important and ancient center for cult and pilgrimage, says Olivieri in the statement. At that time, Swat already was a sacred land for Buddhism. In addition to the temple, the team unearthed coins, jewelry, statues, seals, pottery fragments, and other ancient artifacts. The temple was likely abandoned in the 3rd century AD following an earthquake. Number 3. The ship at the bottom of the world. The famous adventurer Ernest Shackleton's ship Endurance has been found almost 10,000 feet below the surface in the Weddell Sea, off the coast of Antarctica. That's where it sank in November 1915. The 3-masted, 144-foot-long ship was found 4.6 miles south of where it was last thought to be by members of the Falklands Maritime Heritage Trust's Endurance 22 mission. Without Endurance getting stuck in thick pack ice, Shackleton's plans to make the first land crossing of Antarctica failed. The ship's 28-person crew had to leave the ship. The men camped out on ice floes for months until they could get to Elephant Island by rowboat, where no one else was. Shackleton led a group of people who continued traveling for an additional 800 miles until they arrived at the island of South Georgia. There they asked for help to find the rest of the crew. Several attempts to find the ship over the past 100 years have failed because of the same sea ice that sank Endurance. However, historically low ice levels were beneficial to the 2022 effort. When the team watched video of the wreck that a remotely operated submarine had captured, they were astounded at how well preserved it had been. This is mostly because there are no bugs that eat wood in the cold Weddell Sea. Marine scientist Menson Bound, who is in charge of the expedition's research, says, "I have never seen a wreck as whole or as clean and new as the Endurance. The ship's rudder was one of the first things that could be seen. The ice had torn it off, allowing water to enter the ship and ruining it beyond repair. As the camera moved up, it caught the name of the ship arsing across the stern along with the 5-pointed Polaris, the North Star." Bound points out 3 holes crew members cut through the deck to get supplies from the sinking ship as being especially interesting. These holes are next to the ship's wheel, both of its anchors, and the portholes to Shackleton's bedroom. He says, "They were able to get 3 tons of food out of the ground and were back on full rations right away. I'm pretty sure that food saved their lives because it kept them alive until they got to Elephant Island." Number 2. The 4,800-year-old prosthetic eye, unearthed in Burnt City. Iranian archaeologists in Burnt City announced the finding of an artificial eyeball dating to 4,800 years ago at this historic location. Mansur Sajadi, director of the Burnt City Archaeology Excavation Team, announced the discovery, stating that the eyeball belonged to a holy woman who died between the ages of 25 and 30. The woman's skeletal bones were discovered in Burnt City Cemetery, grade number 6705. Sajadi stated that the substance used to build this artificial eyeball has yet to be determined and would be reviewed during subsequent testing. However, at first appearance, it appears to be made from natural tar combined with animal fat, coated in gold. Initial ocular investigations also reveal the creation of an abscess in the eyelid as a result of prolonged contact with the eye. Furthermore, the residual eyelid tissues are visible on this prosthetic eyeball. According to Sajadi, even the most delicate eye capillaries were drawn on this eyeball with incredibly thin gold wires. There are also parallel lines around the pupil that form a diamond shape. This eyeball also has 2 holes on the sides to keep it in place in the socket. Initial anthropological investigations on the woman's remaining skeleton suggested that she died around 4,800 years ago, between the ages of 25 and 30. This prosthetic eye is now the oldest known ancient prosthetic in the world, surpassing the Greville Chester toe, an artificial toe found in Egypt in the year 2000, by more than 1,200 years. This woman's grave also contained clay vessels, decorative beads, a leather sack, and a bronze mirror. Archaeologists have uncovered a number of significant and rare artifacts amid the ruins of the ancient city in recent years, including a 10-centimeter ruler with a 0.5 millimeter accuracy. They have also discovered a ceramic bowl at the Burnt City with depictions of what scientists claim to be the world's oldest animated artwork drawn around it, as well as the oldest dice in the world. Burnt City, located about 35 miles away from Zabul and Sistan and Balochistan province, southeast Iran, is one of the country's most notable prehistoric monuments, having flourished throughout the 3rd millennium BC. Burnt City, which covers over 1,100 miles, was recently recognized as the largest prehistoric site on mainland Iran. The city went through 4 stages of civilization and was burned down 3 times, earning it the name of Burnt City. The discovery of hundreds of historical locations, including 166 satellite villages, as well as a vast amount of archaeological relics, bones, and ancient constructions at the Burnt City archaeological site, gives it an unprecedented record in Iran's archaeological endeavors. Number 1. The mystery of the Notre Dame skeleton in a flowered crown and lead coffin. Notre Dame de Paris has a lengthy and interesting history, making it one of France's most recognizable attractions for many years. However, following the devastating fire that destroyed the world-famous Notre Dame Cathedral in 2019, archaeologists were called in to assess the extent of the damage. During Notre Dame's lengthy renovation process, an incredible new discovery was made. Hidden lead coffins were discovered buried beneath Notre Dame's Gothic spire. In 2022, the responsible archaeologists in France disclosed what the sarcophagi had revealed so far. One of them was Antoine de la Porte, a wealthy canon of the church. The other, dubbed Le Cavalier, could be an elite member who lived between the 14th and 17th centuries and was in his 30s when he died. He appears to have been embalmed and buried with a floral crown, which is unique. From the condition of his hip bones, the man appears to have been a distinguished horseman, hence the nickname Le Cavalier, which means the rider in French. How and why these 2 men were buried in such distinguished locales is unknown. These treasures are a testament to the ingenuity, artistry, and resilience of our ancestors. They serve as a bridge between our modern world and the civilizations that came before us. These 12 archaeological treasures are the most amazing we have found so far, and we hope we can keep adding to the list in the future.